The last time man went to the moon was more than 5 decades ago, but now NASA has completed the first manned mission to the moon via Artemis II. This mission sent 4 astronauts to space, completing a full loop around the moon in 10 days before coming back to Earth. This was not just a gesture, it was an important step towards the long-term existence of mankind on the moon. So let's dive in, and from here, my friend Lily will take you through the rest of the story.
Artemis II launched on April 1, 2026, carrying 4 astronauts aboard NASA's Orion spacecraft, launched by the Space Launch System, or SLS. The crew includes Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Jeremy Hansen. Their mission is a 10-day journey that takes them away from Earth, around the moon, and then back again. According to NASA, this is the first crewed mission of the Artemis program, and the first time humans have gone this far into space since 1972. After launch, Orion first entered Earth orbit, where engineers checked the spacecraft and its systems before committing the crew to the moon. Once everything looked good, Orion performed a major engine burn called trans-lunar injection. This is the maneuver that pushed the spacecraft out of Earth orbit and placed it on a path toward the moon. From that point on, Artemis II officially became a lunar mission. NASA confirmed this burn as one of the key steps that sent the crew toward their flyby trajectory. A few days later, the spacecraft reached the region where the moon's gravity began to dominate over Earth's. This is known as the moon's sphere of influence. In simple terms, Orion had reached the point where it was no longer mainly under Earth's pull. It was now being guided by the moon. That transition set up the most important part of the mission, the lunar flyby. NASA highlighted this as a major milestone before the spacecraft passed behind the moon. On April 6, Artemis II completed its moon flyby. Orion passed around the far side of the moon and came within roughly 4,000 miles of the surface. That might sound far, but on a mission this large, it is close enough to get remarkable views of the lunar landscape. The crew was able to observe the side of the moon that can never be seen directly from Earth, the far side, a heavily cratered and very different-looking region compared with the near side we are used to seeing from our planet. NASA says the astronauts captured imagery and observations during this part of the mission. One important detail is that Artemis II did not enter lunar orbit. Instead, it followed what's called a free return trajectory. That means Orion used the moon's gravity to naturally bend its path and send it back toward Earth. This type of route is very useful for a test mission because it is efficient and also provides an added layer of safety. If something went wrong, the spacecraft would still be on a path that leads back home without needing a full landing or orbital mission profile. NASA's trajectory materials show Artemis using this loop-around path rather than staying in orbit around the moon. The flyby also gave the crew one of the most iconic views in spaceflight, Earthrise. After passing behind the moon and temporarily losing direct communication with Earth, Orion came back into view, and the astronauts were able to see Earth rising above the lunar horizon. It's the same kind of view that made the Apollo missions so memorable, and it's one of the clearest reminders of how small and isolated Earth looks from deep space. NASA shared updates from the mission as Orion emerged from the far side of the moon. Another major milestone from Artemis II is distance. Orion reached an area at a great distance from the moon, where the Earth could be viewed as just a tiny blue dot. This was the most distant place reached by the spacecraft before it started making the way back. When the time came for the re-entry of Orion, everything was planned with utmost precision. The crew module detached from the service module, shedding off the module which had been responsible for providing propulsion during their mission. The capsule was aligned perfectly into position with the help of thrusters in order to enter the atmosphere at the optimal angle. It soon entered the atmosphere at speeds nearing 25,000 miles per hour. The astronauts aboard had to endure the harsh forces of deceleration at more than 4 times Earth's gravity. During this critical phase, temperatures outside the capsule soared to nearly 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Orion's advanced heat shield absorbed and deflected this extreme heat, creating a fiery plasma trail that briefly disrupted communications with Earth. Inside, however, the crew remained protected as the spacecraft performed exactly as designed, validating one of the most crucial systems for future deep space missions. As the capsule descended further, a carefully timed parachute sequence deployed. First, small pilot and drogue parachutes stabilized and slowed the spacecraft. Then, 3 massive main parachutes opened high above the Pacific Ocean, dramatically reducing Orion's speed and guiding it toward a controlled splashdown. After traveling more than 500,000 miles through space, the spacecraft touched down safely in the waters off the coast of California, marking the successful end of its journey. In mere minutes, rescue personnel coordinated by NASA and backed up by the U.S. Navy had arrived on site. The capsule was firmly held down to ensure its stability, and then the astronauts were guided from the module with the help of divers. One by one, the astronauts were loaded into rescue vehicles and flown by helicopters to the nearby recovery ship. At the same time, the spacecraft itself was raised from the water and prepared for the journey back to solid ground, where it would undergo a thorough examination and testing. The Artemis mission can be considered a significant achievement in the history of human space travel. All phases, starting from liftoff, deep space maneuvers, passing close to the moon, and re-entry into the atmosphere, went according to plan. This mission proved that we can again transport astronauts past the Earth's orbit and bring them back safely. However, this mission is not just about returning to the moon's neighborhood. In fact, it marks the beginning of a new era in space exploration, which will see us land humans on the lunar surface, set up a permanent base, and eventually send astronauts to Mars.